Hi, everybody. This is Gertrude Mache here in sunny Wellington, New Zealand. As you can see, the sun is shining. We have blue skies for a change. We've had terrible weather. And today I am talking to another amazing woman by the name of Kelly. Kelly, please say who you are, where you're based, where you're from, how old you are, and inspire my listeners with your very unique story.
Well, I'm Kelly Hayes Raitt. I'm 57 years old. I'm an American woman based in Los Angeles, but I happen to be house sitting right now in Ajijic, Mexico, also a sunny, wonderful place. And I hope you can see Lake Chapala in the background here.
Oh, fantastic. Kelly, you've had an amazing life, and I'm not even sure where to start, but there was something that really hit me when I was reading your bio about a very life-changing event that happened to you. And I would like you to start there, and then we can just have a conversation about your life before that and after.
Sure. Well, in 1994, I was 33 years old, and I was in India for a summer. I was actually tour guiding 9 American teenagers through India for the summer, which was in and of itself, it's a whole other interview, but it was very interesting. But after the kids left, I ended up going to the Maldive Islands by myself to scuba dive. And I was in a kind of a remote island. That's what Maldive is a series of remote islands with a dive resort there. And the manager kind of welcomed me to the island by inviting me out for a drink and inviting me to a VIP dinner. And he upgraded my room, and all these things were inexplicable. But, you know, I was a single woman, and it was fun. And then that first night, he knocked on my door at 3:00 in the morning, and he didn't force his way in. I will say that I let him in, and we did start making out, and we did start having sexual relations using a condom. And then he reached down and he pulled the condom off, and I couldn't get him off me. He was a big husky guy. He was drunk, and I just couldn't get him off me. And at that point, I just gave up. And I ended up pregnant from that experience. And to be perfectly honest with you, I never called that experience rape. It was my father who called it rape. And I still really didn't believe him. And I didn't take on that word, I guess, because for me, I felt like, well, I'd let the guy in my room. I mean, this wasn't, when I think of rape, I think of some guy in a hoodie and a knife hanging out in the bushes somewhere, a stranger. But we all know intellectually that that's really not the majority of rapes that occur. The majority of rapes that occur are more like what my experience was, an acquaintance rape.
Yes.
And it really wasn't until, frankly, last year. Now, this happened in 1994. It wasn't until last year when I read Jon Krakauer's book, Missoula. I don't know if you've exposed your listeners to this. But Jon Krakauer is an American journalist, and he's written a number of books, Into Thin Air, about Mount Everest, and a couple of other books. And he wrote a book called Missoula. Missoula is a city. It's a college town in Montana, for you, Gertrude. Yeah. And it's a book about the experience of women and everybody else when there's an acquaintance rape that occurs. And there were things in that book that I learned that really helped me understand what my reaction was to this man coming into my room and this encounter happening, and my reactions afterwards. Because my reactions afterward, I kept hanging out with this guy. I wasn't interested in him. We never had sex again. I never wanted that to happen. It never came close to that happening again. Yeah. But I was on this small island. He was the guy in power, and I, there was nowhere else to hang out except kind of with him, and other people at the resort, which was, very few people. But what I got out of Jon Krakauer's book that I found so interesting is that it's very typical for women who have had this kind of experience to continue to hang out with the men that did this to them. And the reason for that is that usually when women are raped like this, they're raped in a place that has been safe for them. For me, it was my hotel room that I had paid for. For other women, it might be their dorm room or a trusted friend's house. And it's done by somebody that they have put in a position of trust, a friend, or in this case, the hotel manager. And so in order for women who have been forced to have sex in a way that they didn't want to have it, for me, that was without a condom, which I would never have done. It's a way for women to try to regain a sense of trust, or regain control of trust. So they kind of say, oh, this really didn't happen. Maybe I was a little provocative. Maybe I was dressed too sexy, or maybe I gave them the wrong impression, or, people in that situation, as I did, tend to minimize what happened and go, oh, it really wasn't rape. It really wasn't that. It really wasn't that bad. And to be perfectly honest with you, when I got home to Santa Monica, California, after that experience, I put it out of my mind. And it wasn't until I learned that I was pregnant when I sat myself down and said, Kelly, you got to figure out what happened, because this can't happen again. The stakes are too high. I'm now carrying a baby inside me, or what could be a baby. I did end up having an abortion, and I am very much pro-choice, but I also was very cognizant of the fact that I was carrying life inside me. And for me, that meant the stakes were too high. And I spent months and months meditating and going to a counselor, going to a couple of counselors, and doing a lot of personal work and personal writing. I mean, a lot of real self-awareness kind of work to find that nanosecond that allowed me to allow this guy into my room. Now, please don't get me wrong, Gertrude. I'm not saying that I asked for it, or I deserved it, or I wanted it. I'm not saying that at all. But I was very, very aware that there was a nanosecond when I let this guy in my room. And I wanted to find that. I wanted to find that moment so that it would never happen again. And for me, that moment was, I allowed this guy into my room because I felt I owed it to him. He had upgraded my room, bought me a nice dinner, bought me a couple of drinks, and that was just in my own psyche, my own psychology of I'm not good enough. That the only way a man would want to be with me is if he's, the only way that I would think that a man would be with me would be if I owed it to him. That was deep in my mind somewhere. Now, if you would ask me that, just like that, I'd have gone, you got to be kidding me, Look at me, I'm 34, I'm talented, I'm smart, I'm gorgeous, I'm blah, 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 whatever. But that's not really what was going on deep inside me. And it was that insecurity, that deep insecurity that I owe it to this guy that allowed me to open that door from this much to this much. And when that happened, that set me on the road for having intercourse in a way that I didn't want to, which was without a condom.
Oh, wow.
So that's my story.
Wow. I mean, this happens to a lot of women. And like you're saying, women end up blaming themselves for what's happened. And they take all of that on them. Or denying it and probably never having to consciously face it. You were forced to consciously face it because you got pregnant. You could easily have just pushed it to the back of your mind and it would always be there, but you didn't have to address it, and you had to face it head on. Wow.
Exactly. I really felt like I needed to. I'm very glad that I did. It was painful at the time. It was painful for a short period. And then the insight that I got out of that and how I was able to start changing the way I live my life was very different after that. I look back at that. I'm 57 now. I look back at that 34-year-old woman and I don't even recognize her. I mean, I'm an entirely different person now as a result of that experience in a positive way. Now, I would have loved to have learned those lessons without that experience.
Yes.
But that's what life gave me, and so that's what happened. And I'm also just very grateful for what's happening now with the Me Too movement in the United States, and really it's happening worldwide. And with books like John Krakauer's book coming out, Missoula, that are really addressing rape in a very different way. It's not about blame, and it's not about victim. I've never, ever felt like I was a rape victim. Again, I wasn't attacked by some stranger with a knife to my throat. That to me is a rape victim. And so I never saw myself as a rape victim, even though I now say that I was raped because I believe that I was. But I think looking at rape as an issue that doesn't have a victim is a different way of empowering women who have been through that experience, so that we can do that kind of self-exploration and make sure that it doesn't happen again, so that we can make the kinds of changes in society that we want to see so that it doesn't happen again. For example, I didn't know how to say no to a man. It was one of the counselors that I went to during that period of time who taught me how to say no to a man. Little girls aren't taught that. No. Little boys aren't taught to listen to me. Little boys are taught to, you keep going, you keep going, you keep going. That's the way you win. And we need to teach little boys that one of the ways to win is to listen to what people are really saying and give them what they want. Yes. And if they're saying no, then you give them no, you give them what they want. And that's just not what we do in our societies these days. So, I think there's a lot that needs to happen around changing the way men and women relate. And of course, we really are seeing that. We're going to see change on that. And it's not going to happen overnight, but it's happening quickly, happening so quickly. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But I think, things like your show, this effort right here, I mean, nobody did this 20 years ago. Nobody talked openly about rape. There's still places in the United States and around the world where women who have been raped are not identified publicly.
Yes.
I don't know. I mean, if I were robbed at gunpoint and my wallet was stolen, I'd be named publicly. Yeah. I mean, because that can be an empowering thing, right? Yes, it happened to me, and we're going to talk about it. Yeah. Well, same thing with sexual assault. This happened to me, and I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to help other women figure out how to not get in the same position I was in.
Yes. Yeah. So tell me something, just to wrap this up. 3 lessons that you learned. I want you to talk to that young girl who this hasn't happened to before and explain how you felt in that nanosecond when you allowed him to come in. Women are very intuitive, but they don't listen to their intuition. Did you feel anything? Did you sense anything that said, maybe not a good idea? That's number 1. Talk to the woman who has experienced this and is working through it at this very moment. And give me the nuggets. What was the silver lining? What was the gift in this experience that has helped you for the rest of your life?
You like to throw softballs, don't you? Okay, so to the young girl who's trying to figure it out and coming of her own, you have a right to say no. Your body is your body. You don't owe it to anybody. You don't owe anything to anybody. So learn how to say no. Learn to say it clearly, without explanation, because guys love to argue, so if you say no but or no because.
Yes.
I think most people are kind of like that. If you were to say to me, no but or no because, I'd go after that because part. I'd be focusing on that to get your no to change. But if you just said no and there's nowhere for me to go, that's a no. Yeah. So learn to say no. That doesn't mean that if you don't say no or you say maybe that you're asking for it. Mm-hmm. But let's start with learn to say no. So that's the first thing I would say. Yeah. Now, the second question was to somebody who's gone through this and is trying to figure it out kind of like the way I was.
Yes.
I don't have any magic answers on that one. I used meditation. I used counseling. I wrote a lot. I sat and I thought a lot. I gave myself the time and space. I think that's probably the biggest gift that I gave myself during that period of time. I happened to have, soon after I had the abortion, I was in between jobs, so I actually had a space of time, but which also was kind of fortuitous because it's too easy to get so busy in our lives and just shove all that stuff under the rug and say, it's too painful, it's too complicated, it's too whatever, I don't want to deal with it. So I had the gift of time and space. And so I would say to any woman grappling with what happened to them and why it may have happened to them and what part they may have played in it, again, not that they were asking for it, but what part that they played that allowed some sort of complicit behavior to occur, to take some time, to consciously take some time and effort out and spend that time and effort figuring it out. It'll be different for every person. You know, what it was for me was what it was for me. It was my karmic whatever that I had to deal with.
Yeah.
It'll be different for everybody. And I think using those perceived setbacks that we're given in life and learning from them, really, truly learning from them deep down, I think is what we're here to do on the planet.
Yes.
So I would encourage women to take that time and space and do whatever it is you need to do. Hire a counselor, talk with a friend, write, meditate, that kind of thing. And then what was the third question? The third part?
The silver lining. And I think you've covered it.
Yeah. The silver lining for me was definitely learning that just because a guy buys me a drink doesn't mean I owe him anything. And again, if you asked me that, if you had said, Kelly, is there a quid pro quo between a guy buying you a drink and you going to bed with him? I'd have said, absolutely not.
Yeah.
What? But, at that moment at 2:00 in the morning, and I was jet lagged and exhausted and in a foreign country and totally discombobulated, my subconscious took over and made that decision for me.
Yeah.
And so changing that subconscious message was just one of the most empowering things I've ever done in my life.
And it's carried you to this.
It has.
Yeah.
And it's changed. And it's also shown me that sitting down and doing that kind of, hard work of really the self-exploration stuff paid off.
Yes.
So, yay.
Thank you so much. Oh, what an honor to have met you.
Oh, aren't you sweet? Thank you. Well, thank you for doing this whole series. I think this is really important.
I think we do change the world through our stories and through sharing.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that this series of podcasts is an empowering space where women can listen to other women's experiences and learn, and where women can share like what you've done and empower. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, I'd like to invite any of our audience to contact me if they'd like to be in communication with me. My website is www.housesitdiva.com, because I now house sit full-time around the world, which is what I'm doing here in Mexico. And my email address is on that website. So it's housesitdiva.com. And I'd love to hear about your experience.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
Okay, thank you, Gertrude.